Hi, Brandt and Allegra. This is Julie calling in from Texas. I was the one who got to visit you. I was maybe the one out of towner, I think. And I just wanted to comment on a few things. I haven't called in a while, so I was thinking about what you said regarding the bullying and how bullying kind of, I mean, I don't mean so far as like rough, stick your head in the toilet and flush it kind of bullying, but, just being a little bit meaner than you would be as an adult, kind of bullying, and how school is really the time when you learn things from one another in an environment where that's really what you're focusing on. I knew someone once that you knew. I won't use any names either, but you both knew her, or you met her, and I always thought she was the weirdest girl and the most socially awkward. And I know from socially awkward because I'm not the most graceful social person out there, but I thought her whole demeanor was so lacking, and I thought to myself, who didn't love you enough to tell you about how the world works? Who didn't love you enough that they didn't tell you to quit your shit when you were young enough and supple enough to actually change the way that you interact with people? She was one of those highly emotional people that wears their emotion as like a protective bubble around them. You can't say this to me because it makes me have a sad. I can't hear this from you right now because it's gonna make me have a migraine. And that type of emotional blackmail keeps people from telling you what you need to hear, to where you live in this little isolation chamber that you've created for yourself, and you end up pushing people away because they can't really connect with you on a deeper level, and then your biggest fear becomes people leaving you. And that's exactly what happened. I couldn't handle it with her. I had every other incentive to stay, but she was just the worst human being. And even worse than like a truly evil person, because an evil person, there's nothing redeeming about them. But the saddest thing is, I think she really meant well. It's so sad. I also wanted to comment on just your wedding in general. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel like one of the privileged few who got to come up there and see your special day and all the work you put into it, and your being there, your vows, every little touch that you put into everything. It both confirmed and negated my view on marriage in general. It was way more touching than I had anticipated. I think what you guys wrote for each other was just perfect. I can't imagine ever doing what you did, Allegra. Not the marriage part, the making a marriage happen part. It just seems like so much work, and it makes so much sense that you did that, and you'll have that memory. You'll both have that memory for the rest of your lives. But yeah, it was way more touching than I could have anticipated, and I wish you both the best for the rest of your lives. I'm so sorry that Emily and I cut out early after after the main part of your wedding. I would have loved to sit around and chat and stuff. And it seems a shame that we came all that way and we didn't stay and hang out in the darkness together. I think part of it was that we still were 2 hours behind. Anyway, 2 hours of jet lag, I guess. But the other part was that we had taken advantage of the legal marijuana in the state of Washington. And I don't know why I was under the impression that I actually liked that, but I really don't. I mean, I always figured there would be a circumstance where I would like that, but it just put me to sleep. It put me to sleep, and it made me even more socially quiet than I otherwise would have been, and concerned about what I'm going to say, which I already am that person. So for me, I think drugs are probably a bad idea, because the only drug the only drug that has a positive effect on me so far would probably be uppers, because that's where my personality needs to go. So once again, very sorry. And to anyone who thought that Emily and I were knocking boots, no, we were just knocking back the marijuana juice and just completely wiped. And so we just went in our tent early, and that was like the best sleep of my life, I'll tell you that. So I don't have any problem sleeping, but if I did, that would be my go-to drug of choice. I was just trying to find where you guys were talking about the differences between men and women, and how women can say, "Hey, you want to make out?" and actually get someone to make out with them. I have to agree, Allegra. You did teach me that, and I did use that move, and it does work, and it is a double standard, but I think, like most things, we can't escape the history of what we've come from. So we come from a history of men having more power over women, and yes, the sexes are different. I think that is just kind of a cutesy sort of consent game. I have decided that I think everyone should just always ask for kisses and ask for, the first time they want to be touched and stuff like that, because I think that it's actually way nicer to be asked than to do that sneak attack move that the movies teach us, and everyone seems to think that that's awkward or weird, but it's a form of consent to say, "Hey, you want to make out?" And I think most people are turned on by the fact that you're actually asking. In most, and they've probably never been asked in that way, but as far as things being sexual harassment, and maybe that's the issue that will come to be the thing that makes us feel like old people. I was on this date, and I was asking him, I was like, what do you think will be the thing that we come to feel old about? I mostly feel okay with all of the changes socially that have been happening with the world. I think we're progressing. Marijuana is legal in 2 states, and I'm all for the gay marriage thing. So what will be the the thing that we feel like we've lost and that things are getting worse, or maybe that's already happened for you guys. Anyway, because I was having a hard time. I'm mostly a pessimist about things, but generally, socially, I feel like we're making progress. But I guess like the hypersensitivity towards bullying and sexism and harassment may be what you guys are leaning towards being a problem, like a loss of freedom or whatever. But yeah, I think in the future, it would just be nice if everyone just asked for what they wanted. And in the asking, it's kind of sexy. No matter if you're really interested in the person, it kind of rounds you up to the next digit or so. That's all I have. I hope I made sense. I have had too much coffee today, but I hope I made this in on time too. But yes, all the best for you guys. Congratulations. Bye.
Make the world scared. Come on, show me the sign of victory. Sign of victory. Sign of victory.
All right, welcome to another episode of No Doy Ralph. This is probably our most professional episode to date. We are in a bona fide recording room, and it's got like sound. What are these things called that are on the wall, Sam?
Sound dampeners.
Sound dampeners.
Diffusers.
We've got diffusers on the wall. We're high tech. So, joining me as always is Allegra.
Hi.
And then we've got Lindsey.
Hi.
Brown, straight out of Granite Falls.
What?
Coming up here to our new recording studio, still on the island. And Allegra and I watched something this week that sparked our imagination, got us talking, and we decided to share that with you. We watched a documentary called Love Me?
I think it's called Love Me, yeah.
Love Me. We got it on Netflix. It's streaming right now. And to break it down, it is about the male bride industry. The bride mail?
Mail order bride.
Mail order, yeah, the mail.
Mail bride.
It's about the mail order bride industry.
Specifically, in some U.S. guys doing Ukraine bride.
Right, exactly. So it is,
Ukrainian.
yeah, it's they took about 7 guys spread out around the country, focused on them, and all of the girls were from, like the eastern
Ukraine. They're all
block
from
of
Ukraine, I'm pretty sure.
Were they?
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't remember what the website is. That wasn't important. The reason that I thought that kind of sparked my imagination is like 2 minutes in, they started showing these guys, and Allegra says, "These men are so pathetic. This is the worst. Look at them. They're so gross." And like had a pretty negative attitude to people that would go online to find their brides. So I'm going to start the topic with that. Can you explain a little bit more what you why was your initial reaction to anybody who would have to go online to find a bride repulsive to you?
It's very judgmental, and it stems back to personal reasons. When I was in the Army, I remember that was kind of my first experience of meeting adult men who were completely socially inept and could not... It was new to me to see... Because I guess I assumed that once you become a man or a woman, you can figure out the whole dating scene and learn how to talk to people. And there were just these guys that were so just antisocial to the point that they were creepy, and to the point where I started figuring out that they could never court somebody who could speak the same language and know the same, who know the same like colloquialisms and little tiny details and subtleties that we could pick up. Mm-hmm. And so they had to go abroad to be with somebody who couldn't pick up on any of that kind of thing. And so it is super judgmental on my part, and I I feel bad because I think everybody needs love, and so in that respect, it kind of works out pretty well, so that the antisocial people can at least find somebody abroad and don't become serial killers.
Because it's one or the other.
So I guess that's a positive thing. And I mean, I feel bad because I look around and there are some men and women who you just kind of wonder, like, oh God, how could they ever be with somebody? But you hope for them that they have somebody out there to love them. And
When you say that, though, I feel like you don't mean like how could they ever be with somebody, like in a negative way. It's like how would that person ever find?
yeah, like I worry about that.
What kind of a like
Like,
if
I
we're talking
hope
about
they
a
can
man
have
who's looking for a woman, what kind of a if you find a very, very antisocial man who doesn't really have a way with words and is very intimidated by the opposite sex, like who is he ever going to find to talk to? And who is that quality of girl going to be that's going to...
You're not like, no one could ever love them, but are they even capable of like putting themselves out in a way that people would get to know them well enough to love them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're not saying that they're like, oh, they're so atrocious, they're never going to
Right.
find love.
Right.
When
Well,
you
those
were...
people exist too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they do, and that. So those guys, when I was just like, oh God, that's the feeling. I had this visceral feeling of like, oh God, they're not. This is making me really uncomfortable.
Well, the documentary does a really good job of... It's not an excellent documentary. It's fine. It was more thought-provoking than anything else. But it did a really good job in the very beginning of showing you a very successful man with his very beautiful Eastern European wife, and they're the spokesperson for whatever website this is. And they're like, not only am I the president, but I'm also a member, and I found her, and we've been married 27 years. And they talk to those two people for a little bit, and they're very happy, and they're like, yes, it is very possible. And then they show the men who are clients of this website.
Regular people.
And the first guy is... Okay, so now we're going to get into a part where we're going to really start judging people, because a lot of what I'm going to say is based on physical appearance and the lifestyles that they're living. But that's what the documentary was doing. So the first guy looked like he, was probably in his 60s, and he had a really good build, and maybe he had lived in California most of his life, and he was in good shape at one point, but now, he's like in his 60s, and he used to have a very good body, but, they never said why I think he was divorced. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. And then they show just your typical, I've got 4 chins, I barely fit in my chair, I've got an Xbox and a PlayStation 4, and I've got a headset, and I've got a cat that lives on my belly.
And there's a bucket of maple syrup next to my chair that I dip my waffles into.
And
He was a big guy. He wasn't morbidly obese, but he was a big guy.
Morbidly obese, I just found out, is 100 pounds over your ideal body weight.
So you might-
That man might have been doubly morbidly obese.
Gross.
I don't know.
I mean, his anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
I know that he was 100 pounds over his ideal weight. So he comes on, he's one of the first people, and he talks about how, he's got a lot of love to give, and, he's not really finding a lot of luck out here. And let's just say, just for sake of argument, he's from Cincinnati. I'm not sure if that is, but I felt like he was somewhere in, the middle America area. And then he starts talking about, he shows the girls that he's interested in, because this is it's basically like a dating website, except both sides are looking for spouses. And he's like, yeah, my age range is 18 to 27, and all of the girls are like super huge boobs and like professional model shots. And so you're like, okay, well, at least this guy's being realistic.
No, can I say something about that really
Yes,
quick?
of course.
It was
You
so
guys can,
upsetting.
we're in an open room mic,
Yeah.
so you guys can cut in and whatever you
That
want.
double standard right there, and it's almost like there's some kind of mental, I don't know a better word to use, but a mental retardation of something in his mind where you need to learn your echelon of women that you go after, and he's going after these like super porn star looking young women, yet he's this fat pig, and that's okay. And like,
I told you we're going to get judgmental here.
yes,
I'm
because
I'm cool with it.
well, I mean, but I've seen that before, and it's like it's just this weird double standard where the man will be like, yeah, I want that, but I'm not going to do anything about myself.
But that's what we're trained since birth to believe that it's okay for men to be completely ugly and horrible and fat and not even good social skills, not good people, and like we have it in TV shows, even like The Simpsons and Family Guy, and
Yeah.
like it's totally okay for a man to be ridiculous, stupid, fat, and horrible, and not successful at all. But his woman better be, good at everything, looking good, keeping it together, and
Not only keeping it together, keeping him in check.
yeah, taking care
Well,
of him.
yeah, and the
started-
men are doofuses.
Yeah, TV-wise, I mean, even before that, like the generation before us, they had the Honeymooners and the Flintstones, and it was so that model has been in effect since television started, really.
And so this is funny because this relates to, I'm looking for a room to rent right now on Craigslist, and I get these alerts sent to me. So anything that's like under my price range and fits anything gets sent to me. And I was reading this one the other day, and it was like free rent. And I was like, what? Yeah. And I go read it, and it's like looking for, and it specifically says like an 18-year-old to 25-year-old girl who is good looking and slim. Hopefully, no, it doesn't say hopefully, but you can tell he's hoping. You might have problems with school. You might be mad at your parents, and you might want to move out.
God.
And so he's like looking for a vulnerable,
Somebody who's
sexy,
ready to like run away.
Yep. And he's
Someone
gonna
that
take
he
care
can
of them.
sell in the sex trade.
I'm not sure if it's like that bad, or if he's just like, yeah, you can come live here for free if you let me do you and cook me food.
Gross.
Yeah.
So that's again like there's obviously a reason why this man, and then they play out the other men, and some of them are very thin, and some of them are they're all successful because they're spending an ungodly amount of money.
How much does it cost?
At one point, if I fast forward to the end of the show, spoiler alerts, the fat man does not find his wife.
Darn.
He talks about how he spent $12,000.
Whoa.
So here's the other catch. We're going to be skipping all over the place. One of the catches of this document, or what of this site that you sign on to find women abroad to marry, is that so you go online, and it's obviously like an annual service or monthly service or something. So you have to pay to get on to their site, and then you can scroll through and find hundreds of thousands of beautiful women who only want to marry an American man. And actually, it's not just America, because there was an Australian guy as well.
Yeah, that Australian guy, I had sympathy for him.
You thought that he was gay.
Maybe, but he was widowed as well.
Yes,
and he was.
Yeah, we'll talk about him. We'll
so
talk about him in a
sweet.
second. But so you get to choose all these women, and then so if you want to contact, like, so if I saw a picture of Allegra, I was like, ooh, I want to send her a message. I can click to send her a message, type it out, and if I hit send, it charges me $10. If Allegra responds to that message and it comes back to me, I have to pay $10 to read what she said.
Oh, wow.
So these guys are spending hundreds of dollars a day
Just to talk.
to these girls. So as you would imagine, this the website a couple times a year, you pay, I think it's $3,000 or $4,000, and you fly to
Ukraine.
the Ukraine, and they do a 3-city stop in a week, or maybe it's even 3 days. You fly in, and then you go to this club in one city, and everybody dances, and you talk to all these girls that are looking for
Super
husbands.
awkward.
And then maybe you hook up, and maybe you don't, and then you go on the bus to the next city. And the big man who has the multiple gaming stations, which I have a gaming station, you have a gaming
Yeah,
station,
that's
so that's,
okay.
Yeah.
but that can't be your only life inside. But so he specifically isn't really talking to other women because he's bought this gold rose. He's been talking to this one girl. He's been waiting for her. He wants to hook up with her, and she doesn't show up, and he doesn't even try. And her pictures are all like porn star, like in your mind what you think of a porn star.
And the maid compliment. She's like, "You look nice," and he's like, "Yeah, thanks," and totally
Yeah.
ignored her.
Wow.
And I'm like, she's in
the
your
one,
league.
Yeah, that's
she's
the
in
one.
your league." But he wouldn't even. He had the blinders on because he wanted that little porn
So
star.
there's so many avenues that we can go off on this. Like
Yeah.
the one is that, like, is the man looking for love, or is he looking like some kind of fantasy that
Yeah.
builds into not only what we've seen on TV, but obviously anytime that you go onto a porn site, like you can, if you don't have the best ability to not differentiate reality from fiction, but like,
Kind of, though.
I can't really talk to women, so all I do is watch this. All I
Yeah.
do is watch this, and that does get kind of embedded in your mind. There are
It changes your perceptions about what is possible and what is realistic.
right, yeah, it does for sure. It definitely can. To the point where he is in a place, and he did look, he did look nice. He was dressed up, and she wasn't like a porn star beautiful maid, but a maid who was not unattractive. Oh yes, you look. I
You look
can't do
nice.
that.
Yeah, no, she complimented him, and she looked like she. I was just like, hey, ask, like, stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like almost like he can't even see anything else, and so it just changes any opportunities that because there's a lot of sayings that people say about it, but if you just let things kind of happen, things can kind of fall into place. But yeah, and I feel bad. I felt sad. I don't know. It was kind of depressing, that part. But
I feel like it's like the opposite in real life though too, that most regular people are going to underestimate themselves, you know, and they're like, oh, I can't probably get that person, they're too good for me or something. And then very few people I think are like, oh, I'm a really big deal. Like that guy who came into the bar one day and he was like, hey, how's it going, blah, blah, blah. He's telling me some story, and then he's like, well, you know, I'm an attractive guy, and I own a sailboat. It's right down in the harbor, so, you know. And I was like, cool.
How old was he?
He was probably like 45 or something. He was not a bad-looking guy, but as soon as he was like, I'm a good-looking guy, and I own a sailboat, I was like, bye.
Yeah.
You're just like, and he said it like 7 times that night.
Oh.
And it was just really, really obvious that he was like, I'm a really big deal, and I can get anyone I want. So there's like a few people who think higher of themselves maybe, but I feel like more people are more likely to just underestimate themselves and not go for what they could get.
But if your example of that guy, that sounds like he might have been really insecure and he had to like prove himself by saying, well, I'm a good looking guy, because guys who really, or people who feel good about themselves don't need to say
it out
that.
loud.
Yeah.
Well, your theory could be true too, because the guy he chose to hang out with was like much uglier than him and not as social, and pretty much just sat there and was just like, whatever he says, yeah. That was
probably easier for him to hang out with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, starting from a young age, if you learn, you know, we have these conversations sometimes, like, if I could go back in time, or if I could go back to high school and know that, like, confidence, it's very, very easy. Like, just walking up to people and talking to them is not as intimidating as you think it is when you're 14 or 15.
And just being direct, being like, hey, I like you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is they're like, nah. And you're like, okay, bye.
Right.
Or they're like, sure. And you're like, score.
Yeah.
So you start creating all these
recognizing
things.
how hot you were.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm fat,
Yeah.
I'm ugly, da-da-da. And you look back and you're like, damn, I was smoking.
No. So attractive, and look at that smile, and man, I was funny. Everybody loved me. Why wasn't I getting more play in high school?
That's the curse
shouldn't
of being
think-
an adolescent, though,
Yeah.
because you're a crazy person at that
Yeah.
time. Your brain is mentally screwy.
We have a friend that actually we did go to school with. Her name's Molly, and she's a teacher, and we were hanging out with her earlier in the year, and she said something that is exactly true, because she teaches high school students as well. And she's like, you know, these kids are so, like, they're so concerned about themselves, and like if they make a mistake, or if they wear the wrong clothes, or if they do something, then they feel like everybody's looking at them. But what they don't realize is that everybody feels that exact same way. Everybody feels like everybody's paying attention to you.
Yeah.
And if you fart in class, or you say something stupid, or whatever, everybody's going to notice. It's going to be the worst day of your life. But all other 30 kids in your class are sitting there feeling like, I hope nobody's looking at me. Oh my God, I have a boner. What should I do? Oh, this is the worst. So everybody's staring at me. I shouldn't say anything.
I'm not sure what 2 times 4 is.
What do I do with my boner?
And then those kids that do tend to become, I guess what you would quote, popular, do have a little bit more social skills, where they realize they have not only a little bit of charisma, but are able to talk in a way that you're like, oh, well, that person's obviously a big deal, because everybody thinks they're a big deal. But, you know, you don't just people don't just like randomly vote you to be popular. You have to have, there's some kind of inner quality. There has to be something that one will make other people not necessarily like physically attracted to you, but, you know, like attracted to you, like, oh, I'm this person grabbing my attention. And then have people like hang out with you, because you don't just have a popular person that just is a loner.
Yeah.
They always have like
A group.
there's a group.
You know what's funny though is it only lasts in high school. So like in high school you're popular and it's easier for you to talk to people and do whatever. And as soon as it's over, like the people who were kind of like more dorky or didn't have, you know, that all come to them as easily, they had to like work harder on their personality and their skills and like interacting with others, and I don't know, and that pays off, because later you meet those people and you're like, you're actually cooler and more capable than any, you know. And then the people who were popular like super fail in life.
Well, you find typically, you do. You find that they reach that apex super early, and then
they just crash.
And then they have nowhere to go. Everybody else leaves to go like be part of the world. And like, oh,
I'm not loved anymore.
what happened?
And I don't know how to to do laundry.
Yeah. It's so hard, though, because, one, it's nearly impossible to impart that to children, because by the time you realize that that's reality, you're now an adult, and children don't listen to anything that adults say, because, like, you don't understand. You don't know what it's like. Like, I can recall being a child. See, that's how you know that you're old as well, when you say, I recall being a child. And people saying, like, this seems like a big deal now, but it's really, really not. Like, you don't know! This is the biggest thing ever!
Yeah.
It's really not. But it is those things that, if you do have to struggle a bit more, it's way more worthwhile in the end.
Yeah.
There's a mutual young person that Allegra and I know that is going through, this junior now in high school, and it's not the easiest thing. And you just look at him, you're like, this isn't your time though.
Yeah.
5 years from now, that's going to be your time. All this stuff, you just have to kind of survive it and just wade through it and get past it. I know it's not super comfortable, and you probably feel insecure and probably feel like you don't fit in, but wait 2 more years, get out of here, go somewhere else, and then
people are going to love you.
Yeah.
He's super charismatic. He gets along with everybody. He's very, very interesting. He's just...
Adults love him.
Yes. But just, I can understand why his age group probably is like, yeah, he's a little weird.
Yeah, he doesn't fit in the box.
Right.
You're supposed to fit in that box if you're going to be accepted. So if you're too weird, you draw too much attention. Nobody wants that.
No.
Yeah, well, but you can tell, like, there are people that, and this kind of goes back to the guy in the Mail Order Bride documentary, and then other people who never, and this also goes back to what when we were talking about bullying, and not like the not assault, like the slamming a person's head into the toilet. Like, we need to play Julie's response about that.
I'll embed it into this.
But those, and then also what she's talking about, some people just never, and like what she said, there was somebody that, it's sad because it's like somebody in your life didn't love you enough to put you in your place and learn how to socialize with people. Yeah. And they go into adulthood not learning, not knowing, and not being reflective upon themselves enough to know that other people don't like you because you're just annoying, or
you have no reason to put up with you.
Yeah, and it like that.
This backstory is just real quick in case you didn't listen to our podcast 2 episodes ago. We were talking about bullying. There's schools around the country. It's not universal yet, but there are schools that are handing down a list of what is considered bullying, and you can be suspended or even expelled. And it isn't. I mean, I'm sure it does encapsulate, like, I've punched you, or I'm threatening your life. But some of it are, it's like, if you and your 2 friends are at a lunch table and another kid comes down and sits next to you and you guys get up because you don't want to sit and have lunch with him, you're excluding him and you can be reprimanded for that.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of these which are coming across as really touchy-feely, like, there is a point where, yes, you do need to learn to accept people. Yeah. But you also need to understand that not everybody needs to like you.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have to.
There's a process that we learn. Nobody wants to sit next to me because I smell bad. And maybe once I learn, maybe I'll take a shower. Or it's...
Or if you're in, like, 3rd grade and you're like, hey guys, look at this. And you put your hand underneath your armpit and you start making that farting sound and everybody laughs. You're like, I'm so cool. And then you're in, like, a freshman in high school, and you're like, hey guys, look at this, and you're still doing it.
Oh my god.
If everybody just has been told by their parents and their student or the faculty of their school that you need to accept everybody for whatever it is they do, well, that person's going to do their whole life and not realize, like, it's okay to say, I don't really like that.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah. And it's also okay to say, I don't want to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I don't. And one of the examples, when I was hearing about these rules, are like, what if I'm here talking, what if me and my girlfriend at the time are sitting at the table talking and something traumatic has happened or something, and somebody sits down and we're like, I'm sorry, this is kind of a private conversation. That person can now go report us that we're excluding them.
Yeah.
So what it's becoming is this, everybody is exactly as important as everybody else, which on the surface is fine, but there also needs to be, this is, I guess, a long-winded way of bringing it back to this socialization of how to act in a society. It's like, not everything you do needs to be accepted by everybody else. And we do learn through being, I mean, we have all been bullied You know, even if it wasn't like physical, but somebody making fun of you, or teasing you, or spreading rumors about you, or talking behind your back, or playing a prank on you, or all these things that are embarrassing and they're hurtful and they make you cry. But you also get a little bit of a thicker skin.
Yeah, that's about it prepares you for life. I think. I mean,
Well, and you learn how to like decide who you're gonna like spend your time with. You know, so
Yeah.
people who did those things to me
That's a
were
good
usually
point.
my, in air quotes, friends at the time.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, well, I don't really like you. So I'm gonna try in the future to not hang out with people who are like you,
Right.
because that's
If
not-
that's the person that you're going to be, then I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are valid learning experiences. I don't know, we're going to go to the point where we're just sheltering everyone from every experience they're ever going to have.
Well, go ahead. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, which is good advice to a point. Like, don't just go up and say something mean to somebody just because you can.
I
But,
hate you because you're ugly and you smell.
man, a really good friend of mine in middle school, because this is a good story, in middle school he had horrible breath.
Aw.
Horrible breath. He's a very cute kid and very popular and everybody liked him, but he had horrible, horrible breath. Allegra hates it when I do stuff like that.
yeah, I do, because you should totally omit his name.
No way, no. If it was a bad story, I would. Anyways, finally at one point, this was in 7th grade, I was like, he came up and said something. I was like, dude, I'm sorry, man. Your breath really smells bad. He's like, really? I was like, yes. I was like, oh, what should I do? I was like, I don't know, get some soap or something. From that point on, he had soap in his locker. In between every class, he would go and rinse his mouth out with soap.
See, that's a good friend, though.
He didn't have bad breath anymore. It's like somebody telling you if you have a booger in your nose. Like, you want somebody to tell you if you're doing something. Or
You
being
get mad at me
offensive.
every time I tell you you have a booger in your nose.
I get mad at you because you don't get it out.
Even with your tongue.
Not gross.
But also gets props for responding, you know,
Yeah,
oh, really,
and he
what should
took
I
it.
do?
He wasn't
Instead
like-
of being like, I hate you!
And punching me in the face and
Yeah.
running home and telling his parents that he has to move schools now. I mean, if there is a serious problem, obviously there's a way to deal with it. But there's
For the record, he never had bad breath to me.
really.
So maybe because of you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See,
Ah,
So.
yeah.
I just
I
think
never-
I
I
like
never
to think
remember
that
him
he's
for
a very
that.
successful adult now because of
Because
mostly
of
because
that.
of me.
Yeah.
Because it could have went way downhill
But
from
see,
there.
this goes back to, because maybe you already brought it back to this, but like this is the type of thing that creates those people that have no idea how to interact with the world and who end up so incapable of interacting with other humans that they have to go spend thousands of dollars to try to find someone who will probably not actually love them, but will at least live with them and might perform sexual acts with them.
Right. And there was, I mean, so out of, let's just say, for sake of argument, there are 10 guys. Out of the 10 guys, I think 2 guys, by the end of the documentary, had found somebody and gotten married. 2 or 3 of the other guys had gotten scammed pretty bad for money.
Oh. Wait, by the women?
By the women, yeah.
Oh, they're like, send me this and I'll come or something. Oh.
Exactly. There was, so the guy that we alluded to earlier from Australia, he had been married for like 35 years and his wife died of cancer and he was an older gentleman and he's like, I want to spend time with somebody. I don't like being alone.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some, you can understand that. Like, you
Yeah.
do get used to the companionship, you know, and that's, we were talking the other day about just breaking up with people. Well, you and I were talking about it actually 2 days ago, about breaking up. You know, even if you want to break up with the person that you're in a relationship with, you do miss that companionship,
Yeah.
you know, of being able to go to dinner or go to a movie or just sit on the couch and not be by yourself.
Yeah.
So his story was very, very sweet. And he met this woman and she had kids and he would send her money and then she agreed to marry him. Well, he went to, I'm sorry, what is the country?
Ukraine.
Ukraine, thank you. He went to the Ukraine to visit her, spent more money, and then flew her and her kids to Bali. They got married in Bali. And then he flew back to Australia and she flew back to the Ukraine to go get started on the visa process.
Yeah.
And she needed money for that. And then like 6 months went by and she just never wrote him another letter. And he tried to call her and he would send her emails and then he finally flew out there and she broke up with him. And
Oh, it's sad.
That was the Australian guy?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
I guess I'm confusing them. I thought that's a bummer.
yeah.
That's a bummer.
But so the way that the
Dang.
thing plays out, whether she did it on purpose, I mean, she did have 2 kids.
Yeah.
She stayed on camera and she gave an interview by herself. And she's like, I liked him, but I never loved him. And if you look back at the wedding, I was not very happy. And they did. They showed footage of the wedding. and he went to kiss her, and every time he went to kiss her, she would turn her cheek. She looked very, like, sad. So I think in her case, she probably was like,
trying to survive?
I need to, I live in the Ukraine, I've got 2 kids, I need to, this guy cares for my kids.
Yeah.
But I think she got to the point where she's like, but I'm not going to be happy in this. And I physically am repulsed by you, so I'll take my chances. It was very sad for him. It was something he asked her, he's like, why didn't you just tell me this in the beginning? And she's like, I didn't know in the beginning. And then there were other girls that were just, you could tell, like, this one guy, he was very skinny, and he, like, owned his own farm. He had a lot of money. But he just said, like, I live in such a small town that there's no available women here. And my farm is here. I can't leave. So the only way I'm going to find somebody is online. Now, I don't know how you go from online dating to trying to marry somebody from the Ukraine.
Married.
But he flew out there and met this girl, and they would hold hands, and they looked really, really happy. And then he was at her apartment, and, like, her pimp and a police
Mr. Pimp.
Yeah.
her pimp and a police officer came by and knocked on the door, and she was gone. And, like, we've got your girl, she's in jail. If you want to get her out, it's going to cost $4,000.
Jesus.
And he's like, I don't have $4,000. So they go, well, how much do you have? He's like, I have $300 in my wallet. It's like, okay.
Okay, that's enough. God.
It went from $4,000 to $300.
No bargaining at all.
Yeah. So it was just a ploy, and then
That's sad.
Yeah. But again, so it goes. You're socially awkward. Maybe you're setting your standards a bit too high. The guy that I originally started talking about, the fit guy from California, he went on this trip and he was miserable because, like, I'm 65. I don't want somebody that's 25.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody that's, going to have to wipe my butt for me. I want somebody that's my own age.
Yeah.
That's going to take care of me. Like, he was miserable. He was like one of the realest people on that documentary. They did a really good job of trying to cover the loser person, the person that does find love, the person that hates the whole thing that he's involved in and can't believe he spent money on it.
Except, well, there's the people too who, I don't know where I saw this, but there's some sort of documentary or just little blip, I don't know. But there's this guy who, again, he's a very large man, pretty ugly. Honestly, I am a fatophobe, but also just looking at him, I was like, you're a bad person. Like, something is wrong with you. He bought, I think from the Ukraine also, or somewhere over there at least, he bought a mail order bride, and she was super beautiful. Same kind of thing, like what you would imagine a porn star. Like, she had gigantic boobs, and she had long blonde hair, and really pretty. And so she came over to marry him, and there's these like home videos that he was taking where he's just basically he's trying to rape her, and she's trying to like stay away from him and like pretend like it's a game. Because I think in her mind she was going to come over and they were going to like court and like date and like, maybe she was like, I can look past your exterior and we can get to know each other and maybe we'll have at least something decent. Maybe it's not like true love, but whatever. And then she was in this really bad situation, and then she disappears. Nobody knows where she is. Clearly that guy murdered her, right? Or like him and his friends, or I don't know.
You don't remember where you saw this?
I was on some, I don't know, I don't remember.
Dang, I want to find it.
Yeah, and it was really, really disturbing because it's like, well, these women, and often it is this way when there's men who have more power, in the relationship. There's these women who like really they're desperate, they need to survive somehow, and so they're going to latch onto these people, and then they get themselves in these situations, which is really dangerous. And I don't know if that documentary even like touched on that aspect of it, where it's almost like a form of sexual slavery.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if those women feel like they have any kind of choice sometimes, except like the woman with the kids.
Yeah.
She's like, I need this.
So one of the statistics they pulled up, because then if you're going to do this documentary well, it's not just like why would a man from America try to get a bride from abroad, but it's why would a bride from abroad, want to do that as well. And they gave some statistics like, when Russia broke down and became all the countries that it became, like, the level, like, a bunch of jobs were lost, the level of alcoholism skyrocketed, and, like, the average lifespan in some of these places is 45 years.
Oh my
For
God.
men. For men.
And so...
They drink so much vodka.
And so, because it's
cirrhosis
cheap,
is huge.
Side note, if you ever are bored and go to YouTube, what is it called?
We Love Russia?
WeLoveRussia.com.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
It's on YouTube.
But it's sad.
There are some pretty funny videos on it, but it's like people driving down the street with a log instead of a wheel.
Because they lost a wheel, so they're like, oh, we have 3 wheels and we just need to keep it upright, so they'll tie like a log to it, and it's like all sparking, and the people filming it are just cracking up laughing, and people jumping off of buildings in the snow with like 10 mattresses and bouncing off, and they're all just wasted.
Yeah.
Free entertainment.
So,
Lots of drunk people crawling across.
but yeah, so there probably is a real need, like, you know, like the guy that works on the farm that doesn't have a choice for a girl in his community. These women don't have a choice for a man in their community.
Yeah.
So, yeah, going abroad would make sense. But then, let's go kind of back to the beginning. The very first reaction you had, like, oh, if you go online to find a bride, you know, you're gross.
For the most part.
For the most part?
For the most part.
Because that's just one
Not
step
all of
away
them.
from online dating, which is huge.
Yeah.
Have you ever online
I have online
dated online?
Yes.
And I've had a long-term relationship result from it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
2 years. Not that it was good.
But it was long term.
2 years. I have a friend who's been married for over 10 years, and they met online.
Really?
Yep. And they have 2 kids together.
Oh, so they're a success story.
And a lot, I want to say a lot of people I know have met their people online.
It's
I've done it. I've done online
I have too.
unsuccessfully.
I was not very
Unsuccessful.
successful either because I was a man. When I was
easier for women.
when we were in San Antonio, I was visiting Allegra, and it was Friday, and we were going to go out and celebrate because it's Friday. There's a couple more minutes left in work, and so I went on to one of the computers in her office, and it was a free site, so it wasn't Match. Match cost some money.
It was OkCupid.
OkCupid.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I like
Plenty
that
of Fish. I can't remember.
And I used your
made
picture.
a fake profile.
I used her picture. I created a profile under the name JC Penney, and it was you were wearing sunglasses, so it wasn't obvious that it was you. But it was a very good picture. And then I just created. I was like, "Hey guys, it's Friday night. I'm getting off of work. I've never done this before. I just decided, what's up? I'm going out drinking tonight. Who's with me? What?" And hit send. Like within 5 minutes, I
Yeah.
had 12 replies.
One wants a dick pic.
Girl, here's my cock.
You want this? Oh.
It's so if you not that. It's as
crazy.
A girl,
That's
but
crazy.
if I would have done the same thing, the exact same phrase, just my picture, like, "Hey girls, what's up? I'm getting off work. I'm going out. Probably gonna have some drinks. Who's with me?"
Nothing.
Months
Oh.
go by.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend in California, very attractive guy. It was really hard for him to find
And he's
girls.
super attractive.
Yeah.
Not that Brandt
It's
is
hard.
not.
Yes.
Right, but-
I mean, I know you can't
Brandt's
see
a
me,
sexy
but
guy.
obviously,
Yes. So
Wow, that's a sexy
And-
guy.
But there's such an influx as well. I think that's probably has something to do with it. Like, if you
There's not a lot
have
of women.
1,000 men
Yeah.
and 3 women, that's why some of these sites, when they're like, all these, sign up and pay this money, we've got a whole database full of girls. Like, I don't know.
Like Ashley Madison, that
Yes.
whole thing. Most of those women they found out were not real. The company created fake profiles to lure men
Smart.
in. So even like it was already I don't actually know. It was already something like 1,000 men to 1 woman, and then in reality it's actually smaller because most of those women were fake.
wow.
So I'm wondering like how many people actually cheated on anyone through Ashley Madison.
Yeah.
It was just, but see, so that's the site that we need to create. A site that you would never be able to cheat on your spouse, but they wouldn't know that. We'd only give them the idea that it's very possible, and maybe the idea of possibly cheating on your spouse makes it better.
Yeah.
Because the mind is a very powerful thing.
Totally.
Which is why I think it goes back to these guys. Like, again, they don't know these women at all for anything, but they've watched enough movies and porn to, in their mind, create something.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be so awesome. But, okay, so let's just say in theory, this fat man just meets a beautiful, beautiful woman, and she falls in love with him, and they come back to the States, and he's like, yeah, we're going to do some porn now, and they have their porn sex for 3.5 minutes. Then what is he going to do? Is he like, well, I'm going to go play Halo now, and then
Bye.
she just hangs up. Like, I don't know if they think everything through. Like, that man
Day to
didn't...
day.
The guy whose wife died and was a widower explained why he wanted to be married. The older gentleman from California who's in pretty good shape, he said the reason he wanted to get married is because he wanted to spend his life with somebody and he wanted to share experiences and things like this. the fat man never really explained why he wanted to get married.
He's like, that's just what people do, and this is how I will get the sex.
This is how I can get it more consistently.
Well, this goes back to kind of like what you were talking about with that documentary that or whatever it was that you saw where she disappeared.
Yeah.
And this is on a different topic, but a lot of these women that get murdered, it's when they get raped and then the guy doesn't think it through and he's like, oh wait,
Now I've raped
she's gonna out me, so I can't have that. So then they kill him, like
That's
not
what
even
it seemed
thinking
like.
that they're gonna. They don't set out, I'm gonna kill her.
Right,
They're
that's
just
the plan.
sex, and we've talked about this so many times. Sex is so freaking powerful.
Yeah.
It will make you lose your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, even
it's
when
not-
you're with
if you're not-
somebody
Yeah,
that
it's
you
not balanced.
Yeah.
And healthy.
well, even when you're with somebody that you care about, like that, the moments leading up to sex, your body's letting all its endorphins out, and you're getting really, really excited. And then, not to be super graphic, but when that act is happening, you do kind of lose yourself for a minute, anyways. There's always that fall, especially for men. There's a really interesting graph as to like when a man is getting aroused, and the graph is going up and up and up, higher and higher, and then there's that moment of climax, and it drops immediately.
Like, I'm done.
Whereas for women, it goes higher and higher, and then they climax, it drops a little bit, and then it climbs up back again, and they have more of a plateau than men do. That moment when it drops down, it's like coming down from a sugar rush, where you're all excited, and then you're exhausted, you're like, what did I just do? And, you know, you have, if you're with somebody you don't know, you look over like, oh God.
God, why?
Yeah. At the moment, you're not thinking about that, because that desire is right there. Afterwards, there's, so you can imagine, take that even a step further, where you're sexually assaulting somebody, and that creates even more excitement to
And
you.
you've been waiting for it for a long time.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
super
exactly, because you're a
unlikable.
crazy person.
Right.
And then once it's done, you're like, well, that's the only thing I have to do now, because I don't want to get in trouble. And
Yeah,
that-
it's
that went
scary.
dark.
It's scary. There. Oh my God, there is the most fascinating one of those crime documentary things, and it's. I don't want to spoiler alert it, but and I can't think of his name, but it's he's a Canadian Air Force officer, and it's like they use his interrogation.
Oh, right. You've shown
But
this
they
one.
set it up. The thing is, they set it up with the murders first, and it is so freaky. This guy. There's this lady. She lives kind of in a farmhouse, or kind of rural.
Yeah.
And she found out that somebody had been sneaking in her house. And she had sex toys in her drawer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she came home with her friend one night, and things were disturbed. And she looked on her computer, and it said written on her computer something to the effect of, I found all your dildos. And
God.
like she was like, oh my God. And it turned out he was hiding in her house. And
This isn't a great story to be telling her.
Yeah, like, no.
oh, sorry. That was really
I don't think this
insensitive.
person's ever been in my house, but now
But
I'm like, what did they want?
Well, he was married.
Yeah.
He was a successful Air Force officer in Canada.
So he would just pick random people.
He murdered a fellow Air Force lady, and he murdered some other people, and they trailed the whole thing because it was like this town, this town, this town, this town, and it was, I can't remember exactly how they tracked it, but I think somebody saw his vehicle. Anyway, it turned out they narrowed it down, and brought him in to be interrogated, and he's just sitting there stone cold, and they have the interrogation on camera, and they used the guy who was the interrogator as the example for other police forces to use, because he was so... Oh, there's 3 deer!
There's a family of deer going by the window.
Oh, cute. 4 of them.
4 deer. Sam gave them
Sam
the finger.
doesn't like them.
You cheers.
By the way, Sam,
Sam
is
the
our
producer.
he's our producer and engineer. Thanks, Sam.
The next time we do this, I want you to have a mic as well, so you can
Yes.
just chime in.
Yes, you need
You
to
guys are
chime in.
idiots.
Totally.
But anyway, so the guy was interrogating him, and finally, the officer gave in, and
It's a really
It was-
fascinating interrogation.
they played on his ego to get him to finally, and his
Like,
main
it's pretty
concern.
smart how you did da-da-da.
Right. And finally, his thing was, I mainly don't want I think the big thing was his reputation
Yeah.
and his family, his wife, and I think he had a kid.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
do.
sure.
Like, just don't tell I'll tell you how I did it. I'll tell you where the bodies are or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you don't tell my wife and kids that I did it, and they're like, of course.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was
Whatever.
it was really, really fascinating because this guy, like, what happened? Why would this guy? He had pictures of him with the president or whatever, and like he was very successful. He could have anybody want. He wasn't like the most attractive guy in the world, but he was he wasn't
Yeah.
hideous.
Yeah.
But something, he was probably so hardcore, all or nothing, rigid, militaristic. It has to be this way. Can't be this way. No. Because when you
So that was a release?
when it's black and white, all or
Concrete,
nothing with everything like that,
Right.
in every aspect of your life, even in your personal life, then things are going to get really crazy. And
What, so did he like pick women who he felt like had passed some sort of socially acceptable line of behavior and killed them, or?
It didn't seem like that. It wasn't like he was.
I feel like
was
he
in that
developed fantasies.
Yeah.
I think it got to that
Oh,
plateau.
that's
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I
like
think
he would
it-
see them, and then he would create a story in his head. And he would follow them, and he'd go and like steal their shoe,
Yeah.
and then like
Oh, and he wore their underwear. He would dress up in their underwear and high heels and take pictures of himself, and it looked like.
So it's a combination of things. I mean, Allegra and I have talked about this quite a bit about how most sexual assault and rape and stuff like that it has very little to do with the gratifying pleasure of
actual sex. Yeah.
It's a lot of it is control and domination and humiliation and stuff like that. But there's also this interesting, like in the very beginning, there's got to be some point, and not even just for people like not killers necessarily, but just moving from that point of like that girl's really attractive, but I can't talk to her. But man, and then your mind starts taking control.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
how
good.
powerful your brain is to like make you believe that. Not even that you're believing in your fantasy, but that can make you do things that you absolutely know that are wrong. Not only are they legally wrong, but they're just wrong. Like,
Yeah.
very few people who have gotten caught,
Don't actually know.
right? And
Yeah.
they don't say like, "Well, I don't care about killing." Like there is a remorse. There are obviously some people that have absolutely no remorse at all, but the majority of people that kill are like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I did, oh my god, and they break down in the interrogation room or in the courtroom or something.
They've
Like,
created something in their mind that made it okay, and now they
Yes.
suddenly have to confront.
and
They're
once
like,
it
"Oh, yeah,
starts
really is
crumpling
wrong."
down, you start, yeah, it's incredible.
That's like that. I don't remember what it is, but it's some, I don't know, it's probably Family Guy or something, but someone gets stabbed who's been stabbing people all along. He's like, oh, ow! That hurts! That's what I've been doing to people this whole time! I'm not gonna do that anymore.
That is horrible. But it goes, I remember a couple years back, speaking of the online dating, I was hanging out with Ryan and Aaron Brazil, and Aaron Brazil was like, oh, so do you think you're going to go start online dating or something like that? And that idea depressed me so bad. I was like, oh, no, not only one do I want to like go through that whole hassle of sifting through people or not getting any kind of letters or anything like that, but then I just started thinking like, just in general in dating, like there's always this thing, like you always have to decide that you're gonna make yourself available, be in places where other single people might be. Like it seems like so much,
It's really contrived.
such a hassle. But we are living in an age like it seems silly that you wouldn't online date.
Yeah.
Like it seems like a very powerful resource.
Yeah.
I think if you do it in the right way, whatever that means. But like, I think, I think like the people I know who have been more successful at it seem to have. It's more like, oh, these are just people. I'm gonna meet them.
Right.
Who knows if we're gonna date or not? And you start off like, we'll just have coffee and we'll just whatever. And if there's some sort of spark, then we'll meet again. And if not, whatever, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have less of like a investment in it, and you're
Right.
not necessarily like, I will get a mate out of this, but just like I'm meeting people and being social, and I think those people are more successful because it is hard otherwise, where you're like, it's like applying for jobs when there are none. It's like you're getting rejected over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
It's like, how do you not get so depressed?
Right.
Right.
And you're just like, why am I still doing this? And what you just said makes sense. Like if you started off like, I'm looking for friends. I'm looking for somebody to play tennis with, or I'm
Yeah.
looking for somebody
Play darts.
to do this. Like if you start with the expectation, I'm looking for a spouse.
Yeah. That's hardcore.
Like that, I mean, that takes people years and years and years to,
Yeah.
and even if, and it doesn't matter, I mean, because it takes some people years to figure out that they want to be married, but if you go in going like, I want to be married,
Yeah.
man, like, you're gonna sift through so much stuff, like, no, well, I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life with you, well, I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life with you, you know, like, I don't know, it seems,
Well, that's why it's interesting to me at all that that friend of mine found a husband and got married and stayed married this long and has 2 kids. Like, that blows my mind that out of all the whole world of online dating, you found this one person that somehow worked out that well.
Yeah.
That, I don't know how common that is.
so does that put to rest that there's only one person out there in the whole world for you,
Yeah, no.
and you just happen to find them online?
Right.
I saw somebody shared something on Facebook that was like, it was a story from Huffington Post, basically making fun of, I think there were 2 kids in Kentucky that got married right out of high school,
Oh, yeah.
and they were saying like, she's my soulmate, and they'd never
I thought it was
left.
from The Onion.
No, it was from
It
Oh.
was a real story.
Yeah.
It was a real
I
story.
saw that headline too. Yeah.
Maybe it was from the Onion. Yes, no, I'm sorry, you're right, it was from the Onion.
Yeah, they
It
were
was,
making
yeah,
fun
because
of-
they were specifically making fun. And I understood what the joke was, but at the same time I was like, so you can either say, you're making fun of 2 people who knows if they're going to be together for the rest of their life, but they actually love each other enough to like
Yeah.
get married, and say, oh, you dumbasses, the world's out there, there's so many. So then when the reverse is what you're saying is, just because you like her, don't marry her,
Yeah.
because you have to go to Tibet or something. What if she's out there, or go to Mongolia, Tanzania? Just trying to think of obscure places.
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago. How do you know? How do you know?
Tunisia.
Yeah.
I think that the key is more like, now I've found somebody. I don't. maybe there's somebody better out there, but
But you can only like find someone and be with them until you realize they're not the best fit and then leave. I mean,
Right.
well, so yeah, they go get married and that's gonna suck when they get divorced. But at
so
least
you
for
know
a
that
time.
you know they're getting divorced.
Well, maybe not. But for a time, statistics say they will get divorced.
That's true.
But for a time, they're gonna be happy. That's cool. Go with them.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't understand the traveling. I mean, I think the other thing they would just like if you were going up, paying money for a website to have access to look at girls, and then paying money to communicate with those girls, and then paying money to fly out to the country where those girls are, and then obviously paying money and think about it
All
from the
in
other
the
thing.
hopes that it might possibly work out.
That is a lot. Like
That's
you,
crazy.
that $12,000 that you just spent on that one person, you could have maybe got some friends. I don't think this guy has very many friends. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't. The documentary didn't portray him as being a very social guy.
yeah.
I do know a guy who got a mail order bride who lives here on the island, who is the father of one of the people I've dated. But she was from, I don't know which, but it was like a Southeast Asian country.
That's the other big one.
Yeah. And
So the
she-
European bloc is
Yeah.
number one, and Asia's 2.
And I don't know how similar, I mean, because when she met, she didn't know that much English. Well, he probably doesn't either. He's not the smartest man in the world. But he has a house, and apparently he has enough money to do this dating service, and apparently they share enough language that they
To get by?
decided, yeah, and you can tell when they're together that they don't even really like each other, but they're willing to like, I want to live with someone, and
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, everybody kind of has their own set
It's
of
pretty
what they're
weird.
willing to
Yeah.
accept and deal with, and
Kind of the opposite of the mail order bride. When I was in Thailand, getting my scuba diver, my instructor certification for scuba diving, almost all of my instructors were like retired military guys that were in World War II. They were all in their 60s and 70s, and they were teaching diving because it gave them some kind of income, and they all had very, very young girlfriends or wives, and so they didn't request them to come live with them. Instead, they went to that country and decided to live there. The biggest difference, I think, is that that girl has the chance to go home if she wants to.
Yeah.
So I'm not without a doubt saying, like, those girls were there because those men had money. But they
Yeah.
also treated them very nicely, and
Which is nice. It might not be.
the town that I was,
You can expect.
yeah, the town that I was in, I mean, in a how does this work out? It was like in a 5-mile square area, there were like 7,000 bars or something, and in every single bar, the staff was available for for rental.
Wow.
Anybody that you talk to, the bartender or waitress, anybody you could. And they had the right to say no, but also part of their income is saying yes. And you could either take them back to your place, which was like $2 more. So it was like $5.
Wow.
For $2 more, you can take them home. Or they had like a little bed upstairs and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so bad.
So much chlamydia.
Yeah.
So gross.
Not that it's an awesome environment that I'm portraying there, but if you can.
Land like a steady man.
Yeah. Who you don't have to do that. That's a pretty big deal.
That is a big deal.
You know, there's obviously an underwriting problem
Yeah.
that's not being solved in that scenario, but you know,
Like not a bad situation for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. This woman, when I met her, that I was thinking of, and I talked to her about too. I was like, "Do you talk to your family? Like, do you interact with your family back home?" And she did, which is good because I wonder, like, I mean, you could come here and just they don't teach you how to use the phone, or like you didn't. What if
Oh,
you didn't
yeah.
know, you know? And then you're just stuck. And especially here on Whidbey Island, you're like, you know, they're out in like Cultus Bay or whatever. Like how does she know how to even get anywhere? And I was
right.
just like, you're so powerless in this situation.
no, this
But
is an
just-
isolated area if you don't know what you're doing.
You can get lost easily
Yeah.
Could walk down the road and catch the transit to the ferry.
if you know
If you
the
knew that it
transit's
was
free
coming.
and where it comes.
Yeah, what if she's from North Korea? She doesn't even know the internet exists.
Yeah.
She has no idea.
Your leaders make feces.
What? That's impossible. But yeah, and then the last example I have is again in Thailand. There was a guy that showed up who was obviously like he had graduated high school, and I think his parents just like wanted him to get out of the house and to be away for like 6 months. And here, when you paid money, they gave you an apartment. If you went on the dive boat, you got lunch. So you got at least one free meal, and there were people around, so you weren't like by yourself. So it's a fairly safe place to send your kid. This kid was developmentally not entirely there.
Oh.
He had very thick glasses, and when he took them off, his face was all squinty. His teeth were misangled, and you could tell in a social situation he didn't understand the social norms of what was appropriate to say, what was not, and things like that.
When people were joking.
Yes, when people are joking, when he probably shouldn't joke about something, things like that. He was a nice enough kid, but there was a couple things against him. I don't think that he was cognitively at the same par as everybody else in that area. He got engaged to a girl, a very big, like, Thai girls are generally pretty small, petite. This girl was very thick-boned and taller than him, and he was very excited, and he called his parents, and they immediately flew out because they're like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And they met this girl, and it was so sad because he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take." He was from Texas. Not that popped into my head. I'm not trying to say that people. Obviously, he's from Texas because he's retarded. I just recalled that the whole time that they were engaged, which was like 6 weeks. Well, she was a prostitute, and she was still prostituting because she's like, until you take me out of the country, I still need to make money. It's like, no, I have money for you. She's like, no, it's not enough. So she would go out and work and then come back to his apartment at the end of the day and, sleep. And then, I felt very bad for the kid.
Did they get married?
I left before he graduated or got his certification.
But his parents flew out and...
His parents flew out and tried to talk him out of it, and they were there for a couple days, and they talked to us. I mean, we weren't... I don't want to say I wasn't his friend. I knew who he was, and I spent a lot of time with him because we took a couple courses together. But, he wasn't my friend. But they pulled some of the people that knew him. They're like, well, what do you think about this girl? I was like, well, she's a working girl.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And I'm like,
She's
yeah,
the
well...
woman of the night.
she's Roxanne in the song. And they tried to talk him out of it, but he was very happy. So that's the other thing. Like it creates turmoil for me when I think about a situation like this. Like that kid was happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the situation was right or positive
ideal.
or healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was very happy.
Yeah.
And she maybe was too.
And she maybe wasn't. And I'm sure she saw him as a way out.
Yeah.
I asked her. The reason why this even came into my mind is, she was talking about the biggest thing that she would miss is not being able to see her family every single day. But then she's like, there's the internet, so people will sacrifice to get out of their current situations.
Yeah.
You know?
If you feel desperate and hopeless, Yeah, there's a lot you'll do.
So this documentary called Love Me leads us all the way to desperate and hopeless. People getting killed, rape, sexual assault.
Yeah. None of it's positive.
There was a positive ending for at least one guy
There was
and
two
girl.
of them.
Yeah.
And those ones were very sweet. The girl was very excited. She was very devastated that she wasn't get to see her parents, but they Skyped all the time. But this girl, so again, she was not porn star looking. She looked like she was
She's
attractive.
cute, yeah.
She had braces. She was thin like they are there. She was tall like they are there. She had blonde hair, but she wasn't like porn star perfect.
Yeah.
And she just seemed more real than. And the guy that she hooked up with, like, they seemed like they liked each other a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they got married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Went to HEB.
That was happy. That was happy.
So it's possible. Guess that's the overriding, as we probably died down to the end of this episode, the overriding feeling is that it's possible. If you haven't found love, or you really want to be married but you're not, you don't have to go to the Ukraine.
And you don't have to force the situation.
And
Just
if
be
you-
more social and
Yeah.
get out there and
Go out and meet people.
I've talked about that though with a lot of people, and it's really hard for some people to do that. Like,
Yeah.
If you're not a social person, it's incredibly hard being
Yeah.
in a social situation.
yeah.
I feel like one of my siblings is like that sometimes.
When they, he's talking about me. When they, they have things around here in our country where we come from, where you can, like speed dating, and like they set it up for you,
Yeah.
and they try to take the awkwardness out of it. People could do that. You could do that. It costs less money, I bet.
There's
I'm sure it costs less than $12,000.
Yeah.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
does.
anyway.
Think of all the video games that guy could have bought with $12,000.
All the subscriptions to porn sites.
Or, you wait another 10 years. This virtual reality thing's got to be coming. Because I remember in '93 they said that it was coming.
Oh, you can right now get the Oculus Rift headset, and you can watch 360-degree videos on YouTube. Have you guys seen those videos yet?
No.
You can do it on your phone, or you can do it on an Oculus Rift headset, but you can't do it on a monitor because it's stationary. But you hold your phone and you're watching a 360-degree video. As you move your phone around, it moves the video to look at
Oh, sweet.
It's super responsive. It blows my mind. And you can buy a 360-degree camera and take whatever kind of videos you want and put it up there.
Cool.
Anyway, so that's like,
That's the next level of porn then.
yeah, it is. And we were just talking about how somebody needs to start filming orgies with that camera.
If that technology has been out for 4 days, they started that
Yeah.
3.5 days ago.
Yeah, true.
The porn industry is on top of it, man.
Well, and then
The
you
porn
have to do
industry is
the
the reason why
U-Haul truck thing.
is one of the big reasons why they don't make porn movie. Oh yeah, the U-Haul truck.
Yeah. Oh, that Playboy stopped doing nudies.
No, that's different. I think Playboy is. I think it's genius if they do what I think they're going to do, which is you buy a Playboy magazine like you would buy a FHM magazine or a Maxim magazine. If you buy a Maxim magazine, like, oh my god, that girl's hot, and you open it up and she's wearing like sheer lace and it's a little wet and you can almost see her boob, and you're like, oh, she's so hot. Playboy can do the exact same thing and then go to see her even more naked, log on to playboy.com, which costs more money, and then you can see her like standing in all of her beautiful glory. That's what I think they're doing.
Yeah.
Plus, I just don't feel like magazine isn't the best way to distribute the nude body anymore.
Yeah. Well, back to they've already done it. If the technology came out 4 days ago, there's this thing that whatever technology we create, like immediately and more fervently than any other area, will be pushed to be used for sex somehow.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
To give us sex, or to get more sex, or let us see more sex, or whatever, make sex more enjoyable.
I mean, it started
Any
with
technology.
photography.
Yeah.
I could take a picture of this. Take off your shirt. Awesome. And then obviously video, and
Sex is the
But
most
even,
powerful
robots and
thing
stuff.
in the
We're like,
world.
oh, we have robots. We can make them to go into nuclear places and so. No, screw that. Let's just even have sex with them. Quick.
well, but it's just what you were saying. That's it. Like sex is
Screw Mars exploration. Let's
I want to put my
bang.
dick in that.
I would explore the robot before explore Mars.
Ooh.
And I was gonna say Uranus, but I thought I'd bring it too dirty.
Oh.
But yeah, that's why technology exists, because sex is such a powerful thing. You're like, man,
Display technology.
how can I make this better? I mean, this is pretty awesome, but if I can make it better.
Or last longer.
But then you also get like, so then pornography. There was a time in history where pornography, like you would go to a proper theater with mixed sexes and watch a pornographic movie, and it would have dialogue and people wouldn't be like whipping it out and masturbating and stuff. But then it's like, you know, once VHS came, the film industry died because now we can just film it in here.
Yeah.
And now, so with a smartphone, you just...
What's the U-Haul truck thing? We
So we'll
brought
get
it
a
up.
U-Haul
so we-
truck, and then we'll drive around Woodby Island, and then we'll film people having sex in the U-Haul truck.
Bye, Rob.
Bye, Rob.
Thanks for hanging
Bye.
out. Toodles.
See you later.
Toots. Yeah, the U-Haul truck.
It's a variation off of a website that I've never seen, but I know exists, called the Bang Bus, and it's where guys had a van, and they'd drive around and be like, let's talk to this girl, and they'd roll down the window and they'd have a camera, obviously, like, hey girl, what's your name? How you doing? She's like, hey guys, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, we're just traveling around town. You want to come with us? She's like, okay, and then she'd get in the van and
She
they're
a
like,
paid actress?
Probably.
Okay.
yes.
So
I'm sure that she
they-
was, but
Okay.
according to the lore, they would pick up random
random.
girls, and then as they were driving, they'd be like, man, you're looking good. Hey, what if I gave you $10 to show me your boob? And they would start like that. And then you're like, well, $20, what would you do for $100? And then by the end, they're having anal sex on the freeway.
Wow. Technology.
So the U-Haul, we're gonna rent. Not we, but you could rent a U-Haul and just drive up and down Whidbey Island and go like down the off side roads.
Find all
And
the
when you
crap.
see a U-Haul,
Like
there's
the
people
tweakers.
banging in there and a porn being filmed.
It's going to be the best, too, because the Bang Brothers at least have windows so that you could, as a viewer, look out and say, oh, there's a palm tree or something. This is just going to be completely dark and enclosed. We'll film it in, like, night vision.
There's like a swinging, like, hanging lamp.
People are falling over. We'll have somebody driving and... Yeah.
Just go up and down the driveway.
We'll slide back and forth.
Oh gosh.
Top quality.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lindsay, thank you for sitting in on our podcast.
Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
Very
That was
nice.
fun.
It's fun.
Thanks, Sam.
Yes, thank Sam, the producer, for being a part of this. As always, we'll put out another one soon. My name is Brandt.
Allegra.
And Lindsay.
Yay.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.